Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome back to the free-to-play review. So today's topic is going to be the Asgardian path, which is part of the Asgard Divide overall event going on in the game. There's a new event dungeon, there's a bunch of lore added, there's a couple of free champions, and obviously some events to get other of the non-free champions. So there's going to be tons of events and tournaments featuring the theme of this overall event. But again, today we're focusing on the Asgardian path, which is a combination of a champion chase, and that is, yes, an actual champion chase for the first time ever in a hero's path, dungeon divers, which we love to see, air quotes, and then a soul rush. So if we actually take a look at the event info tab, you can see here that it is genuinely not a summon rush, which is normally what they do. It's a summon rush, meaning you get a certain amount of points or a fixed amount of points depending on the type of shard that you use. In this case, it is genuinely a champion chase, so you get rewarded for the quality of the champion that you pull. So in this case, you could actually use fragment summon champions, Lady Mikage epics, or if using Lady Mikage, if you really had her, that'd be awesome in terms of points. So you could use fragment champions if you did want to pursue this, but overall it's just going to be the luck of the draw as far as how many points you're actually going to get, depending on what you happen to get from whatever type of shard you're pulling. And then if we go down a bit further, you can see the standard values for the dungeon divers aspect, and then the pretty standard values for the soulstone rush. In terms of the path itself, it's quite interesting, and it's a little bit of a departure from the norm as far as what they typically offer. I mean, well, the typical stuff is there at the bottom, I should say, but along the way there's a lot more different things being offered. So a lot more glyphs, and actually for the first time ever, a good amount of gear, 6-star legendary to be more precise. So you have a full savage set here, you have a full reflex set here, and then further down you have a full speed set, all 6-star legendary. And then in the middle here you have a full set of barbarian accessories, of course, because of the Asgardians are in the barbarians faction. But aside from those, you also have a couple legendary tomes up for grabs and a couple of mythical tomes up for grabs. Now, of course, my first impression was that there is a lot of good stuff up for grabs, but kind of looking a bit deeper into the path itself, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more expensive than it might seem, as we'll kind of go through. So the most important thing to note is exactly where all the keys are and what the keys unlock. So you can see a couple of key nodes down here right below, conveniently below, some keys above them. There's a key here in the center, which is exclusively in terms of its own path. And then there's a couple more key nodes up here. But notably, you do start with one key yourself, so you don't have to worry necessarily about coming all the way down the middle just to get your first key. That would be ridiculous. And so the first path that I wanted to highlight is one focusing on one section or one collection of all the gear. So I would think that the Savage set would be a lot more enticing to a lot more people, so we're going to focus on that side, although it would be the same cost if you were to go down the right hand side. But you start off at the top, focusing on the left hand side, use your free key here, collect all the gear, and if you stopped there, that would be 29,750 points. If instead you wanted to go all the way down to the legendary tome, the cheapest way would be to only pick up 2 pieces of the Savage gear and or reflex gear, but that's up to your discretion if you want to include them all along your way. But again, minimizing the cost and focusing on the legendary tome, pretty much the same thing. You come down the left hand side or the right hand side, 2 pieces of gear, open the key here, open the node, legendary tome, 24,750 points, which is notably cheaper than collecting all of the gear pieces, but again, you can combine them if you so chose. And then the last thing that I think would be enticing would be coming all the way down to get one of the mythical tomes, which conveniently goes all the way through the legendary tome path. You basically have to do the same thing, left hand side or the right hand side. You must pick up 1 piece of the speed gear. I'd probably opt for the boots if I was, gambling man, and then 20,000 points for the tome for a grand total of 48,750 points. Now, of course, you can mix and match all of these desirable goals, but again, keep in mind where all of the keys are. So if you do come down, let's say the left hand side, you pick up all the Savage gear, you go for the legendary tome, and you wanted something else on the right hand side, you want the reflex gear, you used 1 free key here and you used this key here, and if you wanted to open up the right hand side, you would have to then come through the middle path here, grab this key before you could proceed down the right hand side. So if you want both of the gear sets for some reason or something on both ends of the path, you will have to come down the center to pick up this extra key in order to enable you to use the other side. So choose wisely if you're focusing on one side versus the other. So let's hop over to the spreadsheet and break this down in a more digestible format, because obviously these are just kind of random numbers. What does it mean in order to get all the way down to these values? So one thing that I always like to highlight is that I do have the Dungeon Diver section, and this spreadsheet will be linked in the description box down below if you want to check it out. There are multiple tabs, so you can find the one that's applicable for the particular video that inspired you to go look at the spreadsheet. But this is the Heroes Path Calculator tab. But there is the Dungeon Diver section, which I always highlight, that it's telling you, how many average coins per energy, coins per run that you're going to get for running dungeons or running the campaign or running respective dungeons. So it's always going to be the worst return for investment in terms of these types of Heroes Paths events, but it is there. It is nonetheless extra points while you're doing whatever you do normally in the game to farm up some gear, whether it be campaign or in some dungeon. But of course, the main focus of this event, or the main source of points, is going to be either from your soul stones and or your shards. And so we're focusing here more so on this section down here, the soulstone rush and or the champion chase. Now, the Soulstone Rush is pretty much par for the course as how it always is, meaning that it's a fixed amount of points depending on the tier of Soulstone that you open. So if you wanted to get all of the gear, for example, all the Savage gear on the one side, you would only need 4 Eternal Soulstones or 20 Immortals, etc. You can kind of see the values for yourself. Tons of Mortals if you want to do it that way. On the champion chase side of things, it gets a little bit more complicated because you do have to think of this like a champion chase tournament where there is an average amount of points that you could get, and that is these values here reflected in the average value, the average return of the points per shard. Noting that the primal shards are on a 2x right now. I might change the format of this to make that a bit more clear in the future, or have some switches to toggle between this, because this is a new instance of them putting an actual champion chase in a hero's path, and so I might have to do a little bit more work to make this a little bit more robust, but I digress. But yeah, noting that primal shards are on a true 2x, meaning that there's 2x chance on epics, legendaries, and mythicals, so those are a little bit more potent right now than they normally would be outside of a 2x event. But nonetheless, again, these are the average point return values for each of the shard types. That does not mean that if you open 10 ancient shards, you're going to get 2,000 points, because it depends on what you actually end up getting. You could get a bunch of rares, and it could be absolutely trash in terms of points. You get a couple of legendaries and a 10 pop, and it would be tons of points. So, you know, kind of keep that in mind as you're looking through these values. But again, they're reflecting averages, which typically means that you're going to need a larger sample size to actually converge towards that average. And again, you just need good luck. So if you're applying that, smearing it across, then for example, if you wanted to go for the legendary tome, it would only cost on average around 100 ancient shards, again, depending on RNG, 50 voids, 25 primals, or 11 sacreds. So pick and choose which shards you want to use, but again, you want to ensure the maximum amount of quality in order to maximize the amount of points you're going to get if you're pursuing any particular reward. And again, primals would be the best way to go if you wanted to pursue that, but even then it's kind of risky. Unless you're sitting on a decent stack of primals, you're really not going to get any of these paths done. But that is where you can start to mix and match your sources of points. So you can mix some primals, or however many you have, 10, 15, 5, whatever, you know, mix it with some of your soul stones if you have some immortals saved up, or some immortals in terms of coins saved up if you have some mortals saved up. And then of course you can supplement both of those with some dungeon divers points. So you have a few days to work on this, so you could be farming, I think it's a Fire Knight turn attack today and then Ice Golem turn attack tomorrow. So there's a couple of events overlapping on top of whatever resources you might have in order to allocate. And so you can mix and match whatever you decide to do. If you're deciding to do anything, then you can probably choose one thing to go for and make it happen for yourself. This is the best time objectively to pull primal shards because they are very powerful. The double chance for epics, legendaries, and mythicals is the best time to pull. But I will also caution and say that there is always going to be another 2x event in the future, so you don't have to pull during this particular one if you don't feel comfortable doing that. And that's kind of where I'm sitting. I don't like the fact that this is more of a gamble now. For myself, I have like 21 primals or so, and basically on average that wouldn't even be enough to get me one legendary tome, which doesn't feel like a good deal. But of course, if I happen to get 2 mythicals or something in the 210 pops, then it would actually make it a lot easier. So it's kind of hard for me to want to commit to this, just because the odds of getting something good are not great, and especially in a smaller sample size. And I would have to invest quite a bit for a chance to get a reward that I can normally get a lot easier in any other type of event. So in my case, sharing my particular strategy, I'm probably just going to actually skip this one. I think the rewards are great and they're decently priced, but if it was more of a summon rush, then I'd probably be more incentivized, just because I know exactly what I'm getting. I know exactly how many shards I need to open and or soul stones, and I could pinpoint exactly how many I would have to pull to get a certain reward. This kind of has that luck aspect that I don't really like in terms of trying to get myself rewards, kind of like a deck of fate, a little bit of those vibes. And so personally, I'm just going to skip it. Like I said, there's going to be some other 2x, true 2x on primals in the future, and I will just have more primals saved up for that session, and so hopefully that one will be a lot more enticing. But now I turn it to you guys in the comment section down below. Let me know if there's any reward that you're particularly keen on chasing, either one of the gear sets, one of the tomes, etc., or anything else along the way. And of course, let me know what your strategy is going to be. I've already told you mine. It's basically just to skip it, but let me know how many shards and or soul stones you're willing to spend on this event, given that it's a little bit more RNG intensive compared to the standard template that we've seen for Heroes Path events. If you are going to be pulling soul stones and or shards, then best of luck, and hopefully you get something good. Let me know what you you get in the comment section down below. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.